So, as managers, the first thing that distinguishes a manager from non-managerial people is his decision-making ability or power. So, how does a manager make decision, take decision, or how is a manager supposed to take decision? So, there are different kinds of proposals, different kinds of suggestions, following which or according to which, according, I mean, how a manager should take decisions. So we are going to learn some of the techniques. We are going to learn some of the psychological things which play a role in a good decision making or in the decision making process. So let's start. Decision is like, when do you have to take decision? You have to take decision only when you have more than one options to choose from. So if there were no alternatives, there is no point of taking decisions, right? Decision is like, which pathway should I follow? Should I go through this road or that road? It means when you have more than one option, then the idea of decision or the provision of decision comes in. So decision making process, this is a scientific thing. This is how they suggest you to take, or they suggest you to follow this decision making process when you are taking a very big decision. That big decision can be, that can be related to your life, that can be related to the future of your organization, or that is something like very ambiguous, that your intuition is not a reliable source to to feed your decision. So when the situation is a bit complicated and a bit complex, or when the consequence of your decision is far reaching, in that case it is suggested that you follow a procedure to take decisions, so that you can see the consequences, or you can think about the consequences that you may face, or this is a situation, by trying to follow this procedure you will somehow eventually be forced to think about the consequences. But when you take decision based on your intuition, you do not always think about the consequences that you might face, or you do not always think about the uh, steering your particular decision is going to cause, right? So what is the decision making process? It's a funny decision, it's a funny process, I would say, because very few decisions are taken this way. But when the situation is like big and it has far reaching consequences, it is suggested that you take decision this way. So you first identify a problem. We all have problem in our lives, and that is why we take decision to come up with a solution. Provide sorry Problem identification. Problem identification. Number two. Number two is like identify decision criteria. Decision criteria. What are these things? Okay, let me talk about these 2 points initially, then we'll get to the other points. So there is a problem in your organization, and in order to address that problem, you have to take a decision. Give me an example. Okay, think about this. That the problem is you do not have any computer right now, but you need computer to do your homework. You need computer to prepare your report that you need to submit at the end of the semester. So now that you have a problem, you need to do things, or you need to take a decision how you can solve that problem. So the problem is I need a laptop or I need a computer, and uh, that is the problem, that I do not have any device with which I can prepare my report, or I can study. So that is the problem, and the solution, that I need to buy a computer. So how are you going to do that? You need to set some decision criteria. In a computer, you might look into different things depending on your intention. For example, if your problem is about video editing, you are a content creator, then you will look different things in a computer, you look for different things. But if you're a student or if you're a researcher who wants to run a software, research software, statistical software, then you'll probably look into different things in your computer. And if you think that you do not have any computer and that is why you are missing out on so many entertainment, you are missing out on so many TV series, movies, then you'll probably look into different things. So we set our decision criteria based on the things we need, based on the things we look into, or based on the things that we want to address in our lives, based on the problem. So for example, if you want to become a video editor, or if you need that laptop to edit video, or if you need that laptop to play games, so there are so many things in a laptop that you look into: the screen size, the RAM, random access memory, the graphics configuration, and the hard disk. Sometimes you need to SD, and also what are the things that you can, for example, battery life. There are so many things, there are so many features. A laptop comes up with so many features, but now that you want to play game, you'll probably look into these two things: the graphics card and the RAM. That will dictate your decision, and that will dictate, or that will highly influence your decision. And if you are, on the other hand, is a video editor, you'll probably look into the same thing, probably. Yes. But you want to just watch movie, probably the screen will play a big role. So depending on the need that you are going to serve, that you are going to satisfy, your decision criteria will change. Let me show you an example from the slide. It is an example that you'll find in your book too, which is like memory storage, battery life, carrying weight. So there are so many criteria that we have set in, and depending on the brand, it varies from this to that. Now that you have set your decision criteria, you'll allocate weight. So as a graphics designer, you'll probably put much weight on your display quality and your memory and storage, right? But if you are a business person, or who wants to travel a lot and who does not always get to charge his laptop very often, in that case you'll probably put much weight on the battery life. So depending on the need that you are trying to satisfy, your weightage that you are attributing to each of the category, each of the features will vary. So that is the third thing: allocating weight in each criteria. Then we are going to develop alternatives. Based on this, we are going to develop alternatives. So I have put much weight on battery life because I am a business person. I travel the whole country and I don't get to charge my laptop very often. In that case, I look for the highest. Okay. This one is 6080. So HP Pavilion is probably going to be a good option for me. 80, and I'm cancelling out HP ProBook because the battery life is like only 24, is getting 24. So I'm cancelling out a number of options, but I am left with this one, this one, this one, this one. Now, even though I am carrying significantly much about the battery life, it should not be the only criteria that I should pay my attention to, because even though the battery life is a significant factor, there are so many other things that will also come into action while you are taking a decision. For example, even if the particular brand is providing you, or does that computer have any warranty or not, so you understand. So from those things, those weightage, we are going to develop alternatives. So finally we came up with, like, for example, we have 4 alternatives. Now what are we going to do? We have 4 alternatives. We are going to evaluate each and every alternative. We are going to analyze each and every alternative. Then we'll select an alternative. We are going to purchase that laptop. That is like that is implementing an alternative. And finally we are going to evaluate whether the decision was right or not. If the decision turns out to be wrong, in the next decision, or while we are going to make the next decision, we are going to take those learnings into consideration, so that we can put everything into a bigger perspective. Okay, so my point is, you are probably it sounds so funny because no one of you are going to take decision on this basis, but there are some things, there are some significantly significant, there are some significant decisions that you will probably have to take, but this is going to be a good procedure. This is going to be a handy way of reaching a particular solution. Why is that? Consider yourself as a CEO, or consider yourself as a marketing head of Coca-Cola, or marketing head of independent Unilever. So in those cases, you are not the only one manager. Remember that. Are you the only one manager? No. So you have an intention, or sorry, you have an intuition that I should go for these. For example, you have three alternatives: A, B, C. Now you are a manager of Unilever, but are you the only manager? There are hundreds of managers, right? So you have an intention to make a deal with this alternative or this company, but how are you going to make other people? How are you going to convince other people to follow your decision? Because there are so many managers, and if you are going to count, or if you are going to take into consideration each and every manager's opinion, everyone's intuition, that is going to be messy. In that case, this is the scientific way to reach out to a solution. In that case, everyone is going to say yes, because this is a scientific thing. This is not about your intuition. Does it make sense why these things can become handy? Make sense? Okay, are you there? Does it make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
very good, very good. So, I mean, in organizations, even in IUB, trust me, even in IUB, when I was in Dhaka Bank, even in that case, decisions were taken like this. Trust me, really like this. There was a probability of decision criteria. Things were like this, strategic planning. So you'll see this particular term. You will confront strategic planning thing, and you'll see there are so many things, weight and things. Yeah, it is true. It's not something made up. Okay, so managers are decision maker. That is what you are aware of. Now, as a manager, can I expect you to become very rational? So, what is rational management? So, the third one was like decision criteria. What was the third one? Decision criteria, allocating weight, developing alternatives. Allocating weights, developing alternatives. Alternatives. Now, finally, choose one. তাই তো? এখন দেখেন প্রবলেমটা কোথায়? Now, as a manager, you are supposed to develop alternatives as many as possible, and you are supposed to analyze. The next one is analyzing. You're supposed to analyze all the alternatives, but is it possible? What do you think? So I gave you this example in the class, that now that you have a problem, you're going to you need a home, you need a house, you need a place to be in. So you're looking for alternatives, you're looking for different houses where you which you are going to rent. Now, is it possible for you to check all the alternatives you have? No, you cannot do that, because we do not have that amount of time in our hands. We do not have that much resources at our possession. So it is like somewhat ridiculous to think that we'll probably be able to analyze all the alternatives. So what we do, we cannot be rational. Rational decision making says that this is the rational way you take decision, you make decision. So you are supposed to examine, you are supposed to analyze all the alternatives. You are not going to miss any of the alternatives, and only by doing that you will probably be able to take the best decision. But can we do that? No, we cannot do that, because we have limitations. We have limitation in terms of resources and time. So what we do, we try to we try to find something that is good enough. We cannot find the best one. You think about your life. So I gave you probably this example, that I had an uncle who wanted to marry the best woman he can ever he can ever find. So he waited for 5 years. He looked for brides from Teknaf to Tetulia, but eventually he ended up with a very, his marriage didn't work. So you'll probably have a very good chance to find out the best option. You'll probably make the best decision if you could check out all the alternatives. But it is not possible. It is time consuming. That is why manager always look for good enough things. For example, when we were talking about home that you want to take rent, in that case you will look for a home where it is good enough, probably not the dream home you are looking for, but good enough so you are getting it. That is what we try to say, we try to refer to by rational decision making and bounded rationality. So rational decision making is like be objective logical, carefully define a problem, have a clear specific goal, select the alternative that maximize the likelihood, make the decision on the firm's best economic interest. So sometimes it is not possible because you cannot be that much value maximizing, you cannot be that consistent because we have bias. We are going to talk about bias in the later part of the chapter. We have bias. That's why we sometimes settle for what? Settle for we satisfies. We don't maximize always. We sometimes satisfies. Accept a solution that is good enough. We cannot always like maximize our we cannot always maximize because we have limitations. We have so many other aspects that come into play. So that is the idea of bounded rationality. Are uh, if you are like not 100% rational, you just try to be bounded rational. It means you have limitations but you are trying to be as rational as possible given that existing limitations. Makes sense? Does anyone have any question from this? You'll have a question from this particular these two things. You'll have a question. I'm promising you. Do you have any question? What is rationality and what is bounded rationality? Rationality is like going for the best thing, but in reality that is not always possible. You cannot examine all the alternatives. So it is fine if you go for bounded rationality. It's like so now that you don't have any problem from this chapter, I'm going to the next part. So what is this thing? Since we cannot always like take decision based on the procedure, based on the process I have shown you, because it takes time, it takes a lot of effort, it takes your sometimes as a manager you will probably have to make 100 decisions a day, and if you have to follow all these things, if you have to follow the procedure in each cases, you will not have any time for your own self. You'll have to work 24 hours, probably that will not be enough. So sometimes managers, and it is something that we do not discourage, rather we sometimes encourage that you should take decision based on your intuition. And the one thing that I want you to understand is that intuition, this particular thing, is not bad, and it does not mean you're throwing something in the darkness and if it hits, it hits. It's not like that. It's more like your intuition is going to be good only if you have good experience, only if you have good knowledge, only if you have good understanding. So if I have an intuition and if you have an intuition, if I am more experienced and if I am more learned, in that case my intuition is going to take me to a better place than your intuition. Because even though we took decision based on unscientific, non-scientific feeling, our emotional feeling, just because I have more experience, I have more knowledge than you, I am landing in a better place. So intuition is something that managers regularly use to take decision. Okay, so subconscious process. This is a subconscious process of making decision on the basis of experience and accumulated judgment. That does not rely on any systematic or thorough analysis of the problem, as I have shown you previously. And what is why intuition? Because you know why intuition. A manager who had experience with particular event or similar types. I know. Everything's written here. You can go through this. Okay. So there are different types of intuitions that we talked about in our class. I'll just shortly walk you through this. The first one is affect-initiated decisions. Sometimes we take decisions based on intuition and based on our feeling. For example, I need a teaching assistant or I need a research assistant. So two students came to me just because I found someone. He looks like a serious guy. I took him. I had a feeling that he's going to be a good research assistant. Just because how he looked, based on his look, based on his way of approaching me, I'm considering that he's probably a good person. That is probably there is a bias, right? There is a bias, and that there is a bias that is influencing my decision. But what I'm trying to say is that when you take decision based on how you feel, even though there is a inherent bias, we are going to term that as affect initiated decision. Cognitive based decision, sometimes we take decision based on some analysis. For example, it's more like we can put things into order. For example, decision based on skill, knowledge, and training. So you have knowledge that when the election is approaching, our product is not going to fare very much. Or we are not going to be able to meet up our sales target, because there is an election. There will be some unrest in the society, so people are not going to purchase as many products, as much quantity as they used to do. So in that case, you know that since there is election coming up, I'm not going to recruit many people this year. Rather, we're not going to recruit anyone, because there is election coming up, and I think based on my knowledge and experience, we're not going to um, earn that much of a profit this year. So what is the point of recruiting many people? Subconscious, sometimes you don't even think about anything. It's just a subconscious way of taking decisions. Subconsciously, I think this is a good thing and this is not a good thing. For example, um, subconscious mind, you do so many things subconsciously, right? You do so many things subconsciously. For example, give me an example. Do you have anything in your mind how subconscious mental processing can affect your decision, or can lead to a good decision or bad decision? Anyone? Think about subconscious thing. What is the subconscious thing? You are not purely conscious. You are not doing this consciously. Rather, you are doing this unconsciously. How does it work? How does it work? For example, what happens, let me tell you how we take decisions. For example, when I receive an email from my student that he is sick, he is not going to be able to be present in the class, there is something going on in his family, subconsciously I know that you are lying, and I say I cannot approve it without even giving it a proper thought. I'm divulging what we do. I'm so this is the subconscious way of taking decision, because I know probably, I mean, there is a I have not properly thought about your situation. I did not give proper consideration to your problem. It is not true. I'm just giving you an hypothetical situation. I always try to empathize with my students. I always try to understand what you are going through, but just hypothetically consider that I do not, I'm not putting that much, I'm not thinking about your problem. What I'm feeling is that subconsciously I know you are not, you're just being over smart. That's why I didn't decline. So in that case, I can say this is a subconscious decision. Value or ethics based decisions? Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
anyone? Yes.
So can we say the subconscious process decision making is something like related to our past experiences?
Yes, definitely. Your subconsciousness is made up of your past experiences. Yes, sometimes. Yeah, right. You're right. And experience, I
Oh,
mean, these things are not mutually exclusive. It means sometimes uh, one particular decision will fall into so many categories, right? And subconsciously, what are the things you do subconsciously, Troy? What are
maybe
the things?
like, so there are a lot of things. Which one should I point out?
So tell me
Um,
one thing that you do subconsciously.
maybe my style of approaching a question and how I write an answer. Someone
Yeah,
likes to do paragraphs. I like
yeah.
to do
Points.
separate heading and then paragraphs. Um, Someone likes
Yes.
to include diagrams. I like to include tables maybe or charts.
That is very smart of you. I mean, that is the probably the most perfect example of subconscious decision making. You do not know why you are doing that, but you are doing that, right? You do not know why
Yeah.
you are doing that,
Yeah.
but you are doing that. That is your subconscious decision making. Very good. Thank you.
Thank,
Okay,
thank you.
okay, okay. So there are like value or ethic based decisions that we take. Value based decision, whether I should go to the bar. For example, if you go to a foreign country, now your friends are going to throw a party, and everyone is like drinking. Are you going to drink or not? That decision will come from your value, right? Experience based. So experience, I'm not going to talk about this, because there are so many decisions that you take based on your experience, because you are not going to take a rickshaw if you want to go to somewhere that is like, I mean, how do I say that, if that road is already famous for its congestion, it is so, there are so much traffic in that road, you're going to probably go by your feet, go on your feet. So that is what experience is. I'm not going to do something that I have suffered from, or like, I actually took this decision previously and it did not come out well, so I'm not going to take this decision again. So that is your experience based decision. Okay, so there are problems, two types of problems and two types of solutions. There are structured problems, there are unstructured problems. And for a structured problem, you need to take structured program decision, and for unstructured problem, you need to take non-program decision. So how is it like? Structured problem is like these are the problems that you face every day. When I was in bank, people came to me for people came to me with different problems. For example, if they came to me to understand, or like, for example, let me give you one example. At one day, uh, a person came and he was like complaining. uh, not this one, let me give you another example that will make more sense. একদিন একটা লোক আসলো, এসে বলতেছে যে he lost his checkbook. Now what? Do you think that's a structured problem or unstructured problem? What do you think? What do you think? Is that a structured problem? একটা মানুষের তার চেকবুক হারিয়ে ফেলছে. Is that a structured problem? Anyone?
স্যার এটা
No,
বলছেন সো স্ট্রাকচারই তো
কি বললেন আমি বুঝিনি, আরেকবার বলেন.
স্যার এটা তো প্রায় সময় হয় রাইট
চেকবুক
সো
চেকবুক
স্ট্রাকচার্ড বিকজ
চেকবুক
এটার একটা স্পেসিফিক অ্যাপ্রোচও আছে
okay.
সলিউশন আছে
Okay, so this is a bit ambiguous because এটা প্রায় সময় হয় না, কিন্তু এটার সলিউশনটা আছে. এখন এটা হইতে পারে আপনার লাইফে, বাট হইতে পারে ওই ব্রাঞ্চে প্রায় সময় হয় না. বাট ইফ ইউ go through the history of the bank, this particular thing has happened for at least 1000 times, right? So
ইয়েস ইয়েস
there is a structured solution, there is a program solution to this problem. Now think about this. Something happened to your organization that generally does not happen. For example, I mean, if you think about the history of an organization, no problem is unstructured. For example, what happened to Coca-Cola nowadays in Bangladesh? That is an unstructured problem. Now you cannot have a proper guideline to address this problem. For a structured problem, happen regularly these things happen regularly, and there is a specific way, there is a particular procedure that you need to follow to come up with a solution. But unstructured problems, in this case, these things do not take place every day, and the solutions to this problem are not structured. I mean, you don't know whether you should take this approach or that approach. How are you going to address this problem? You do not have any idea. So the problem Coca-Cola is facing nowadays is a unstructured problem, and we need non-program decision. It means we need to come up with different decisions or new decisions when you confront an unstructured problem. I think it makes sense. So these things are procedure, rule, and policy. These are the solution to structured problem. These are the programmed decision. For example, if you do not come into my classes for 9, if you have 9 absence, in that case you are going to be ruled out. You are going to be, your course will be withdrawn. That is a rule. You cannot change it. What about a procedure? A procedure is like how you are going to add drop. That is a procedure. How you are going to enroll in my class. That is a procedure, and it is structured for everyone. I mean, everyone is not going to the program office and asking for this procedure, because you know that this is a standardized way and everyone knows that this is a procedure. A rule is a rule. For example, if I submit, or after 10 minutes of the class, I cannot mark you as present anymore. Or after submitting the after submitting the attendance sheet, I cannot change it. I cannot, modify it. Policy is like, this is a guideline. It does not say anything explicitly, rather it is the guideline. For example, if the policy of a business organization is to be very much customer friendly, regardless of how wrong the customer is, how stupid the customer is. You cannot say you are stupid, you cannot say that he is wrong, because your policy says that the customer is wrong, the customer will be wrong, but you'll always have to be nice to him. Whatever it is, you will have to be nice to him. That is the policy. So if anything happens that the customer is being very harsh to you, even after that you'll have to be sweet to the customer, because that is the policy. Okay. So it is a guideline. It is not something that is very specific. For example, in IUP, what is the policy? The policy is, whatever happens, you are not going to cancel classes. You are not going to, you need to take classes. That is the policy. So whatever happens, we always take classes. Class এসে পড়ে আর না পড়ে, I need to abide by this. So unstructured problem, non-stress. So you know this linear thinking style. Yeah. Linear thinking style. What is it? It is like I'm data driven. I'm data driven. So I always look for data. I always look for facts. That is your linear thinking style. This is the scientific way of approaching a problem. And non-linear is I do not only take data into consideration, but I also take into my consideration other things. I also take other things into my consideration, such as feelings, intuition, and my judgment, my experience. So that is non-linear thinking still. This is like the art and science, and this is like the only science of management, managerial decision making. Makes sense, I think. This is the only rational, logical. I mean, this you can attribute this particular thinking style to the scientific management, and this you can attribute this thinking style to the artistic, or the management is art. You can relate this to that. So decision making style. So I know you know this. Let's talk about the bias, and we're going to wrap it up after that. So there are so many biases when we take decisions based on our intuition, or we take 100 decisions every day probably, whether I should sleep now, or I should surf the internet 10 minutes more, whether I should eat more another plate of rice or not, whether I should go for a walk or not. We take hundreds of decisions, and our decisions sometimes are harmless, sometimes they have the ability to harm, right? So our decisions are all of our decisions are biased decisions. We are affected by the biases we possess. Now, is it a bad thing? I will not say it is a bad thing. I will not say it is a good thing, because that is how we have been created. We are not perfect. We are not perfect because we have biases, and depending on the schooling you have had, depending on the experience you have had in your life, depending on the exposure you have had, depending on the books you have read, and society where you grew in, family where you were born in, depending on so many things, you have biases and you cannot go out of that. But what will help you as a manager, if you know about these biases, you'll probably ask yourself questions. You'll probably put yourself accountable to yourself. But you're going to ask yourself this question, whether I'm being biased or not. You'll only be able to ask yourself this question, whether I'm being biased or not, only when you are aware of the biases. So that is the purpose. As a manager, you will make hundreds of decisions, and you need to, if you are aware of these biases, your decisions will probably be a bit more logical than emotional. The first one is overconfidence bias. When we think that we cannot be wrong, that is the overconfidence we have. আমি পরীক্ষার কিছুই পড়লাম না, পরীক্ষা দিতে গেলাম, আরে আমি তো ভালো লিখতে পারি, আমি তো অ্যাটলিস্ট 20-এ তো আমি অ্যাটলিস্ট 10 পাবোই, পরে দেখলাম 0 পাইছেন। সো দ্যাট ইজ দ্য ওভার কনফিডেন্স বায়াস। হ্যাঁ, আই মিন we are trusting us more than we should. Immediate gratification bias. When you do not have any emotional intelligence, when you do not have the understanding of the consequence of your decision, you are going to have you'll probably take decision based on your immediate gratification. For example, we do so many bad things in our lives, not thinking about the consequence, because we are so much into the gratification that we are going to get immediately by doing that thing. For example, what if there is like 500 taka you are seeing on the floor, you're taking that money and you are putting that in your pocket. You're doing this and thinking that nobody's going to see, but probably someone saw, and what is going to happen after that? And think about other things. Your boss is like being very rude to you. The boss is angry, and now that you do not have any understanding of the consequence of your actions, you got angry with your boss too. You're like you started shouting with your boss. You're saying, what are you doing, man? I mean, you're saying things that you're not supposed to say. আপনি গালি দাও শুরু করলেন আপনার বসকে. In that case, I'll say, for the immediate gratification, you are ruining your career. Huh? So anchoring it, immediate gratification is more like chulkanar moto. When you eat, it feels good, but at the end of the day, it might have bad consequences. Anchoring effect is like there is an anchor, so you have anchored you have anchored on your first impression. It means when someone comes in your life, when someone gets, for example, you were in an interview board, someone came in and you did not like the way he dressed. Now, regardless of how good he is in terms of answering your question, just because you already had a very bad first impression, You cannot get out of that impression, because your impression, your feeling got anchored to the first impression. You're not being able to change your decision. You're not being able to like him anymore. That is the anchoring effect. Selective perception bias. Sometimes our brain omits so many information, so much information that we do not need. For example, uh, you see so many things, but how many things you put your focus on? Probably very few. So, which are the things that you're going to put your focus on? Only those things that your brain is permitting you to, or your brain is driving you to focus on. For example, um, selective perception. It means your perception gets very, very, very narrow, and your brain is omitting so many things that are unnecessary to you. Does it make sense? It is a very unconscious way, and you do not have any control over this. That is the selective perception bias. For example, if you have bought a red dress and you came in a class wearing a red shirt, and somehow you know that it was a stupid thing to do because red doesn't suit on you, or you wear something that doesn't fit on you, that doesn't you do not look good on this. Now that you know that you are in a very you are in a discomfortable position. Now you look for things that if you wear something red and it makes you uncomfortable, you look for other people who also wear red. So everyone who will come in front of you, or who will go uh, alongside you, wherever there is, if anyone wears red, you'll see him. Your brain will make you see those things only. That is like selective perception. Our vision gets omitted. When you buy a phone, for example, you buy a phone that is not that much popular, but whenever you'll see anyone using that phone, you'll see that. So it's a bit ambiguous. It's a bit let me draw something. For example, this is your brain, and these are the things that you see. Your brain is going to omit these only. Your brain is going to focus on these things. That is your selective perception. You can see only these things. You cannot see the other things, because of your experience, because of what you are feeling, because of your feeling. So how does it affect your decision? How does it affect your decision? Tell me. Does anyone have an example? Selective perception bias. That is like it's more like, if you have good experience with a particular product, you have good experience. Try to understand. You have good experience with Xiaomi phone. Now you will think that Xiaomi is the best phone in this world because you have had good experience. Have you tested other things? Have you checked out other products? Have you checked out Oppo? Have you checked out Redmi? Have you checked out iPhone? Have you checked out Samsung? No. You have had a very good experience with Xiaomi phone, and you are thinking that this is the best phone ever because your brain has omitted other information. So it's a bit ambiguous, but I think if you want to understand, you should do your own research. You'll probably get a better understanding of this. The next bias is confirmation bias. It's more like we try to confirm our action. We reaffirm our past choice. For example, I have bought Xiaomi phone. Now that I know that probably it was not a good thing, but it makes me feel bad because I have invested so much money into one particular product. I have bought this phone, and it makes me feel bad if I think that I could have bought other phone with the same money which are better than this phone, and it makes me feel bad. So what I do, I will look for only those information that will reaffirm, or that will make me feel good, that will reaffirm that Xiaomi is the best phone ever. For example, if I choose a particular research assistant from 3 or 4 people, and now that I'm finding there are so many problems in that particular guy, now I look for only those things, his good things. Probably ও ভালো না, ও এটা পারে না, কিন্তু এটা তো পারে. So I only look, I'll try to find information to reaffirm my past choice. আমি যদি আরেকটু বেটার এক্সাম্পল দিই, সেটা হচ্ছে ধরেন পৃথিবীতে এখন দুইটা, মানে অনেকে ইভলিউশন দে বিলিভ ইন উই হ্যাভ বিন ইভলভড, আর আরেকটা হচ্ছে উই ইভলভ ফ্রম ডিফারেন্ট স্পেসিস টু দিস স্পেসিস। মানে ওরা বলতেছে যে life started from a single cell, and that single cell evolved into complex species. Another one is like creationist. They believe that we have been created by Allah, by God, creationist. Now, in order to justify their position, evolutionist will always find information that will reaffirm his claim, his past choice, he'll always find out those facts and data and proofs that will reaffirm his decision. And creationist will always find out fact and data that will reaffirm his decision. Does it make sense? That is like confirmation bias. Framing bias, it's more like it's somewhat like a selective perception, because you have omitted so many information. Here you're also going to omit so many information, and you're going to frame a particular thing, and you are deliberately letting go other things. You are deliberately not taking into consideration other things. That is like a framing bias. For example, if I quote one ayah from Quran, that will be a framing bias, and without considering the context. If I quote one ayah from the Bible, or if I quote one ayah from Rabindranath's, or one line from Rabindranath's poetry, without considering the context, in that case I can say that is a framing bias, right? How you are going to show the picture. For example, you'll find so many beautiful pictures of Dhaka, because that particular picture is not going to show how actually the place is. Rather, they are focusing on something that is very beautiful, and it will give you impression that probably this place is beautiful, but in reality that is not. Availability bias. It's more like we always reach out to. We always remember the events that are most recent and vivid. For example, the most classical example, the most common example of availability bias is like when oh I let me give you a good example. For example, you are a doctor, and you have found this week 10 people came to you with a same symptom, that they are coughing, they have a cold, a chronic cold, and they have headache. And after testing all of them, after testing 5 of them, I found out that they have a disease named disease A. Now that if I come with the same disease, same symptom, without even testing, you can say that I have disease A, because that is the information you have had. Does it make sense? That is like availability bias. So since this is happening, and for these are the symptoms, and this is the disease, you have come with the same symptom, this should be the disease. And the most classic example that I wanted to give you is that the classic one is, you are always afraid of flying, because planes planes crash a lot. That is what you think. The planes are riskier than car, but in reality, that is not the truth. Because every day they are there are so many accidents taking place, car accidents. How many plane accidents are taking place? Probably one in a year. Even though the rate is very low, you are more afraid of plane, because when a plane gets crashed, this is a headline in every news channel, and you don't generally get to forget about those stories, because we still remember what happened in Nepal, Kathmandu, right? We all remember that. Or we also remember what happened to that Malaysian Airlines uh, that, that disappeared out of nowhere. So these are the things that are going to permanently imprinted in our memories, and it is going to affect our decisions. So randomness is like, it's like a superstition. If I wear this color of dress, the decisions I'll take will be better. This thing. Randomness is like superstition. I gave you examples like what Sachin Tendulkar used to do. He didn't used to move, or he didn't used to switch his position in the dressing room. And whenever he used to change his decision, or sorry, whenever he changed his position, wicket fell off. It means the the particular event is random. Whatever happening, whatever is happening, it is happening out of. I mean, it doesn't have any pattern. It doesn't have any relation with what you do. But you are developing a pattern to address that. Sunk cost error. It's more like, I have invested so much thing into this problem. Now I have invested so much thing into a particular project. Now that I know that was a bad decision, I cannot get out of this because I have invested so much into it. So we talked about the relationships. I am in love with someone, I'm in relationship with someone for the last 4 years, 5 years. Now that it has turned out to be very toxic, I do not want to get out. I cannot get out because I have invested so much into this. Self-serving bias. I'm only taking credit for the good things that had taken place, and I'm not taking any responsibility for the bad things. Hindsight bias. It's more like কিছু হওয়ার পরে বলে I knew that, but আমি কিন্তু আসলে জানতাম না. So the tendency of the decision makers to falsely believe after the outcome is known. Remember that we could have accurately predicted the outcome of the event. For example, আপনাদের আজকে যে ইন্ডিয়া সাউথ আফ্রিকার খেলা আছে, আপনাদের একজন ফ্রেন্ড সাউথ ইন্ডিয়ার হয়ে বাজি লাগালো, বাজি লাগানোর পরে সে হারলো, পরে আপনি কি বলছেন আমি জানতাম সাউথ আফ্রিকা জিততো, কিন্তু আপনি আসলে কিন্তু জানতাম না, এটাকে বলে হিন্ডসাইড বায়াস। এনি কোয়েশ্চেন? প্রবাবলি উই আর ডান। এনি কোয়েশ্চেন ফ্রম এনিওয়্যার? ওকে, সো এটা কি হেল্পফুল ছিল ক্লাসটা?